Hello and welcome to Gangs All Here. This is a special edition live show, a postseason wrap-up show. I'm Ryan Sampson. That's Frankie Vittorini from U Stadium. We're here to talk about the Jets as always. And today we're going to talk about Brian Costello's exclusive piece that he put out this morning, talking to owner Woody Johnson about this miserable, disappointing season in the 2024 year. We'll discuss his comments about Aaron Rodgers' future with the team. We'll talk about him firing Robert Saleh and how he doesn't regret that. And then we have to go through that list of candidates that the Jets have put interview requests out for both the GM and head coach opening. We're going to break it all down here on this special episode of Gangs All Here. But before I get to anything else, Frankie, how you doing, bud?
Ryan, it's a great day. It's Black Monday in the NFL. Teams are going to become better teams, hopefully. Teams like the Jets will hopefully become a better version of the Jets. It's time to go through the season and to cut your losses. So I'm excited about what's happened, and I'm excited about what's going to happen. And I think our green and white boys and gals and everyone are going to be happy with what's about to happen. And I'm going to talk to you about it in a little bit.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot to discuss here, Frankie. We'll talk about the GM and head coach openings and the interview requests later on and those candidates that they're going after. But I've got to start with this exclusive with Woody. And Woody was honest. He was upfront and asked straight up about this season. He called it sad and disappointing. He said that this team needs leadership. They need a commitment to running a football operation. They need to establish a culture. And if a culture is about bringing leadership and that mentality in, that's what this team needs. So he was asked point blank about the Aaron Rodgers decision because we talked about it yesterday on the post-game show. Was that Aaron Rodgers' last game as a New York Jet? There is a ton that goes into this decision about the salary cap ramifications, about how you're going to incorporate a new offense if you were to keep him as your quarterback, what weapons you would surround him with, how do you address all of those things. There's so many questions to be answered there. But point blank, he was asked, who's making that decision about Aaron Rodgers' future with the Jets? And he said it's going to be up to the new head coach and the new GM. It is their decision. I'm going to leave that decision up to them. Frankie, what is your reaction to Woody Johnson saying that, first off, that it'll be their decision to make? And two, do you believe Woody Johnson that it's going to be those decision makers making the Aaron Rodgers decision?
Well, hear me out. By the way, great piece by Kaz. Shout out to the Post and Kaz for that exclusive. Ryan, I think it's a PR ploy. I think it's a little bit of something that you do as an owner when you know that the GM and the head coach will come in and not want Aaron Rodgers here. I don't think Woody Johnson's going to hire a GM or a head coach that would want Aaron Rodgers here. So I think the right answer and the right way to go about it is to say, it's not on me, Woody. It's going to be on them. But the only way them are going to get into their role is if they're on board with Aaron not being here. I can't imagine a GM or head coach coming in here and wanting Aaron to be here for another year. So I think the right way to do it is what Woody said, and that's the right answer to Kaz's question. But in actuality, I don't think that's actually what's going on. I don't think that there's any scenario here where a new GM or a head coach would be okay with Rodgers coming back. I just really don't. I think that's the right way to go about it, but I don't think that's the actual scenario at play here.
Interesting. So you think there's a PR standpoint, Woody's looking at this, potentially maybe for future GM candidates that are interviewing for this position, kind of selling them like, this is your call, not my call. I'm not going to force Rodgers onto you into the 2025 season.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's something that Woody's going to want in a new GM or head coach, right? I think he's going to want a new GM and head coach that is not on this bring Aaron back train. Now, there could be a situation where, let's say if Vrabel wants to come here and Vrabel would want Rodgers around for another year, I think that would make some sense. And there could be, like we were saying, there's a 90% chance, a 95% chance that Rodgers isn't back. But I think there is a 5% chance, 10% chance that he is back. But that's if we maybe hit a home run with a Mike Vrabel or a Pete Carroll or even a Ben Johnson, although Ben Johnson doesn't even want to come take a
he's already denied the Jets' request for an interview, or he's put it out there that the he's not interested in the Jets job, and the
Yeah.
Jets have straight out said we are not going to request an interview when they had the opportunity to this week. Now that the Lions are on their bye week for the playoffs, Lions can have their coordinators be open for interviews virtually. The Jets are going to start those interviews starting tomorrow in Florida. They'll be interviewing a lot of these guys over Zoom, and Ben Johnson seems to not be on that list of the long list of candidates that we see the Jets are going after.
But things change, right? On a week to week basis, things change. So because the Jets haven't put out a request, because there's a mutual disinterest in the position on both ends, because the Jets don't think Ben Johnson would take the job, and Ben Johnson apparently, he's not interested in the Jets job, doesn't mean that things don't change after a week or so. I'm
I
just
think
saying.
I think the dream is dead for Ben Johnson, my friend.
I
Think
know,
about
man.
the
He's my
timeline and
number
how it
one
works.
guy.
Well, think about the timeline and how that works. It's the bye week now. You lose that opportunity next week when they start preparing for a
Yes.
playoff game. So you're talking about 2 weeks already, and he's already going to be interviewing probably for other jobs this week. You're losing out. You're putting yourself behind the eight ball if you're taking an interview 3-4 weeks down the road. That's my opinion. But we'll get to that head coaching candidates later. But the important part is you're saying there's still a somehow home run candidate that they'll bring a 5 to 10% chance of Rodgers coming back. That's higher than what Kaz was saying, man. Kaz was telling us 1% chance that Aaron Rodgers comes back with his Jets team.
Well, Rye, if Mike Vrabel comes here and Mike Vrabel tells Woody Johnson, I don't care what you think, I don't care what you know or think you know, I know you think thinking's overrated. What I think and what I want to do is bring Aaron back for a year. Let me give him a call. There's a chance. Yes, it's probably closer to 99% than 90 that he's not here. But I think there's circumstances that could happen where he is here. And you look at Devontae Adams, what he said today about he'd be willing to come back if certain things line up. Aaron has discussed taking another pay cut or moving money around to come back for a year. Listen, I'm not saying it's likely because it's not. And I'm not saying I even want Aaron back because I don't. But if Vrabel's here, Rye, it could make sense for a year, and then you could figure out the quarterback situation in 26.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the sell job there a little bit, but I think I agree with you in the PR standpoint that Woody has to put this statement out that he's going to let the head coach and the GM, the new head coach and the new GM of this team, make the Aaron Rodgers decision. But I think the writing's been on the wall. I think it's been on the wall for weeks now for this Jets team. Aaron, I think, has acknowledged that. He said on McAfee's show, it'll be a first for me to get cut by a teenager. Though Woody denied that his son has any involvement with team decisions, but he acknowledged that his grandfather and his great grandfather, that's the way they did their business with Johnson and Johnson. That they were brought in as teenagers to observe the business and see how the business is run, and get that firsthand look of how that operation works. And then you're brought up to eventually be the successor. But I just think the writing was on the wall for Rodgers. I think he knows, they know they're going to make a clean break at the end of the season. While a lot of Jets fans have debated what better options are out there, I think everyone needs to understand what the Jets were in 2024, and they're not. And I'm talking about the fans. They were going all in. They were going all in, and Woody acknowledges that in this piece where he says this is the most talented roster I've ever seen. We didn't win though. That was the bottom line. Rodgers had good numbers, but the most important number was wins. He didn't have enough. We didn't have enough, and we didn't do enough. That's why he's trying to start this search fast and aggressive and find that new head coach, find that new GM that's going to start the leadership and build this thing the right way. They tried, like you said, Frankie, to microwave success here, and it didn't work out. That's a step back now of recognizing from a bird's eye view that didn't work, that process. We need to find a new group of leadership that's going to build this the right way. It's going to build that culture of winning and hopefully build a sustained winner. I just think fans are being a little too reactive about the Rodgers part about there's no better quarterback option out there. Listen, we know the free agent quarterback class is not good. We know it's not good. We know the quarterback draft class, while there may be some talented pass throwers out there, there's no guarantees. There's no Trevor Lawrence's, even though he's busted a little bit. There's no, Drake Mays and Jaden Daniels even, and there's no Caleb Williams. That's not coming out of this draft. it's going to be a multi-year process. And I think that's what the Jets are trying to tell these future candidates before they take this job.
Yeah, yeah. And that could be also a good thing in a way, too. You can tell a candidate you're going to bring in a new GM that you're going to have a say in, potentially who that GM is. And sometimes when you're not stuck with a quarterback, it's better that way than, being stuck with a Derek Carr
Yeah.
or a Kirk Cousins or someone that maybe you don't feel comfortable with. It's good sometimes to have a clean slate. And who's to say? I'm just saying there's quarterbacks in this class. If Drew Aller ends up coming out, you don't know what's going to happen with Cam Ward. If you like Shador, I don't, but some people do. You don't know. And I like some of the round, 3 guys, 4 guys, like we were talking about on yesterday's show, like a Will Howard or a Jackson Dart. So I think there's something to be said about having a clean slate this year, potentially having a quarterback that might fall to you that you can develop for a year. And then depending upon how 25 goes, you can see your options in 26. But I think there's something to be said just about everything being open.
Yeah.
There is no more hiding like we've been talking about. There is an actual, in my opinion, a rebuild going on. And the head coach can work directly with a GM of their choice. That's a big part of this. That's a selling point in the interview process, right?
Yeah, I think the counter a lot of fans would have is why not have Rodgers come back, though? He's still under contract, and have him mentor this quote unquote day 2, day 3 quarterback or quarterback that falls in the draft that he can pick. I just don't think Aaron's willing, and I believe Kaz on this, and I believe a lot of people have talked about this. Aaron doesn't want to learn a new offensive system at the age of 42 going on 43. He's not going to want to learn this new offensive system and play by the rules of the new head coach coming in because ultimately you want to establish the culture that the head coach is running the team. Aaron's been running the ship here. Don't be fooled. Aaron was running the ship for the
100%.
last 2 years. This was his say. He denies it to McAfee. He goes, I think it's ridiculous. People think I control this roster and this decision making and this. It's like, dude, we know you didn't get Saleh fired. It's been denied up and down the block. We know that. But you supported Saleh as a head coach. You also forced the Jets basically to bring in Nathaniel Hackett to even have an opportunity at you because you wanted to coach with him as your offensive coordinator. You wanted to play with him as your offensive coordinator. But I just don't see Aaron being a team player that way. And like, yeah, bring in whoever. I'll play for that coach. Like, I just can't see an
Of
Aaron
course
Glenn.
not.
How is Aaron Glenn going to deal if he's the head coach of the Jets? How's he going to deal with that power struggle in the locker room if Aaron Rodgers is giving speeches before the final game of the season, telling Olbrich, hey, let me talk to the team before our final game. Like it just, I don't know, man. And I know it's different. He's a quarterback. He's supposed to be the leader. I get it. But you've talked about it. He's not the leader you think he is.
No, he's not. Everything's about Aaron. And we see it the last couple of weeks. I hate saying it like that, and I'm just being a realist here, right? We've been speaking about this. It was about 100 touchdowns for Devontae. It was about 500 for him. Garrett Wilson's been nowhere to be seen the last month of the season. I posted his targets. I mean, Devontae doubles him every week in targets. It's about Aaron and the Devontae show right now. Good for them. Again, I'll repeat it. I don't care about any of those numbers. They mean nothing to me, those milestones. I'm a Jets fan like you are. We don't care about what they did in Green Bay and trying to like hold it over here. At this point, though, you're 100% right. Why would a head coach want to run an Aaron Rodgers system? And he is going to want to run his system. He's still running his system right now with Downing and Hackett there. He's still running what he wants to run. He's still audibling when he wants to audible. And just to go into a little bit of a time machine here, what happened in Green Bay? Not to reiterate what we've spoken about, but Matt LaFleur did not want Aaron to audible out of his plays. He was forcing Aaron to run his plays. And when he was mandating that those plays were to be run without an audible, Aaron rebelled. Aaron would throw the ball out of bounds. Aaron would not go through his reads like LaFleur wanted him to. And they butt heads. Yes, he did end up winning an MVP underneath that. Yeah, he did end up winning multiple MVPs in that system. But the last MVP, he was really rebelling against LaFleur, and he still managed to win because he was so efficient. That year, he was throwing balls out of bounds. If you remember, he didn't throw any, I think he threw 4 interceptions that year. So his numbers sort of helped him get the MVP more than I would say he actually deserved it that last year because there was really nobody else. But why did they split? Because it's Aaron's way or the highway. here at this point, it's been Aaron's way. And us fans, we're walking down the highway. Like we got nothing right now. We got nothing. We're walking down the highway with the bag of nickels in our hand. And that's it. And I don't want to try this again. It's over. But, Rye, if a Vrabel wants to come here or one of these top head coaches and they want Aaron back for a year, I'm okay with it. Even I was saying if Liam Cohen wants to come here and says, I'm fine with Aaron here for a year, we can even run it his way. I'm fine because I don't care about the 25 Jets. I care about the Liam Cohen, Mike Vrabel 26, 27, 28 Jets, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. It's a tough sell for the fan base, I think. At least half the fan base.
Some fans want Aaron back now, right? Have you seen this?
I've seen a lot of the chatter that they want Aaron Rodgers back, and I just think it's crazy. Guy won 5 games for you this year, and he went off, quote unquote, having great games versus the Dolphins twice, who are not a good pass defense, against the Jaguars, who are arguably the worst pass defense in the NFL. And what do you do against the good teams? What do you do against even the Cardinals, the Bills? He crumbled in key situations in the final drives against the Colts, against the Bills, against the Steelers, against the Vikings. And you could say, oh, those Jets lost those games because if they had a kicker. Sure. But half those games are on Aaron Rodgers too. And he didn't get the job done when he needed to. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think he could stay healthy for a full 17-game season.
Absolutely not.
It's brutal. It's a brutal game. It's a brutal season, and it's long and it's hard, and quarterbacks get beat up. Look at what happened to Justin Herbert this year. That dude battled through so many injuries, and he has a great offensive line, and he still got beat up. Quarterback's going to get beat up, and I just don't know if Aaron's going to be able to stay healthy throughout the entire year. And I just can't sign up for another year of a 42 to go on 43-year-old quarterback. His arm's not going to get any stronger, guys. He's not going to get any healthier. He's not going to get healed faster. Like, this offense, at the end of the day, is going to be his offense. And what happens when he goes out? Who's going to step up? Tyrod Taylor is going to be able to run Aaron Rodgers' offense? I don't know, man. Like, I think it's an easier sell to a lot of people if you take Aaron Rodgers out of the equation and you restart it and you try and find the next quarterback of this team.
Right. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers' offense really quick. How many points did the Jets average this year? Points per game.
It had to be what, low 20s?
Less. The race to 20, we didn't hit 20. We hit 19.9. We averaged points per game, Rye. 19.9. Do you know who we're tied with? The same amount of points we scored throughout the year. I think 320 points with the New Orleans Saints.
Yikes.
Do you know who averaged more points than us this year? Carolina Panthers.
Yikes.
The Jets were 24th, 25th, because both spots are taken because we're tied with the Saints, in points per game. Did we have any real injuries? Garrett Wilson was healthy all year. Devontae came in. Breeze was hampered a little bit, but it wasn't like Tyler Conklin was there all year. We did not have enough injuries to make that an excuse. We had pretty good O-line play, I would say, overall, especially in the second half. You can't blame the O-line. I'm not blaming them. But Aaron just wants to feed Devontae or whomever else. He's targeting Alan Lazard. Occasionally, he'll throw it to Garrett's way. We get no one else involved. I posted Jeremy Ruckert, Malachi Corley, and when Mike Williams was here, accounted for 0 touchdowns while they were here with the Jets. That is Aaron Rodgers' offense. I am good on seeing it again, or even a little better version of it, which I doubt will happen. But let's just say with coaching, people are like, oh, it'll be a little better. I'm good. I know you're good. You've been good all year, basically. Let's move on. It's a new day.
Yeah, I agree. It's a new day. And now the Jets are beginning their search for the new head coach and the new GM. And Frankie, the list has been coming out fast and rapid this Monday morning on Black Monday. I want to start with the GMs, right? Because the GMs, I think, unless they hire Mike Vrabel, I think they're going to go the traditional route and hire the GM first before head coach. That is my opinion, just because I think Vrabel is only that one candidate that can take a job right now and be like, yep, I'm in. And he'll help them search for the GM. But I think it's going to be the GM first before the head coach. So I think let's run through these names for the GM, and let me tell you, and let's see which ones stand out to you and which ones you really want to hit on. The Jets have requested interviews for these following people: Chiefs assistant GM Mike Borgonzi, Rams assistant Ray Farmer, Eagles assistant Alec Hallaby, and they also have requested for Mike Greenberg from Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they've also requested for Ryan Grigson from the Minnesota Vikings. Of those names, because we've already talked about Thomas Dimitroff, John Robinson, Jim Nagy, and Louis Riddick, of these new names that they've requested to put interviews for, what stands out to you the most?
I mean, listen, man, I think you have to look at Borgonzi. I mean, that's the hot name out of that list right there. You know, he's considered a strong talent evaluator, particularly in the draft. He has a track record of having great picks in that front office. They've built a winning culture there. He knows what Andy Reid and that offensive system has wanted and the kind of players they like to plug in to build out your offense, which is something we need to do. We need to run a modern day offense. So if you want to take a proven person that has been an assistant GM and has been a part of a program that's the best in football, he's the number one name for me. And I don't even think it's close. Now, we've spoken about, I mean, with Kaz, how do you know what these people are doing? Like, how do you know who's actually responsible for finding these players? I mean, you really don't know. You have to assume that they're part of the operation, but who's got like the last say? But I think just being from that place and knowing what they've done and how successful they've been. I mean, they're going for a three-peat now, which has never been done before in NFL history. He's got to be the top guy.
Yeah, I think that's a good sell. I think Borgonzi would make a lot of Jets fans happy just because you associate him with the Chiefs' success and what they've been. But again, that's the real investigative part. And when you're interviewing him, what did he do responsibly for drafting some of these key players for the Kansas City Chiefs? Did he help at all with the salary cap? How did he handle these contracts? How does he handling poor personnel? What kind of staff would he have scouting wise across the country to establish that? There's a lot of questions when it comes to picking a GM and what kind of culture and what kind of organization they want to set. The other name that stood out to me was Mike Greenberg from Tampa Bay. Clem Cohen is your guy, and I think that'd be an interesting sell job if you wanted to borrow from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers model. Greenberg, a local native Long Islander, grew up a diehard Jets fan. He's been around the game for a while now. Smart guy. He's not a scout by trade. He's more of a cap specialist and more of a personnel. I think that's an interesting name right there that you could look at. He's got connections with some of the other people you see interviewing for head coaches. So I don't know, man. Would Mike Greenberg be an interesting name for you if the Jets decide to go that route?
I'm not as prone to Mike Greenberg, to be honest. He's not someone that I think is doing enough outside the box in the league. So I either want to go for somebody that has been established in a winning culture for an elongated amount of time, or an outside the box person is Alec Hallaby, Eagles. If you look at him being the vice president of football operations there and a strategist, he's known as quote unquote the rising star in the analytics world. I think he's somebody that you can look at and see the kind of things that he's thinking about in terms of analytics. And you know how the world in sports is going now. Maybe he's got something. Maybe he's doing things the way that the game's kind of going, known as an innovator, kind of like a wonder kid. So I think that's something that would interest me a little bit more than a Mike Greenberg. But listen, we have the only GM opening. So like they gotta nail it, right? I mean, you're not competing with anybody else. You have your pick at the litter, as they say. That's the phrase, right? I know I need to go to you for phrases. I know you know all the phrases,
You
but
have the pick of the litter. But
you have the pick of the litter.
the thing is, you make a great point about the GM opening. The Jets are currently the only GM
Yeah,
opening, and by all signs and indications around the NFL on Black Friday, nothing else is opening up. Surprisingly, the Jacksonville Jaguars are sticking with Bulky. The Giants are sticking with Joe Shane after a 3-14 season. So the Jets are the only GM opening. So you really should have the pick of the litter, like you're saying, of all of the candidates, depending on if they actually interview for the job. And I still think this is a desirable job because you get to pick your own head coach as long as it's not Mike Vrabel, and you get to have somewhat of a talented roster to build around on the younger players. And you get to choose whether or not you want to sign a Garrett Wilson or trade a Sauce Gardner or keep a Brees Hall. What do you do with AVT? What do you do with Jermaine Johnson, Quinnen Williams? All of these players
yeah.
you could play with and establish and build around them. So, and you get to pick your quarterback. There's no guarantee you're going to have that quarterback pick here in 25. Maybe you pick him in 26 in that loaded class and you could really build something here. So I think it's a desirable job. The thing you have to be able to be okay with is Woody Johnson. Woody has to meddle. He does. It's part of his DNA.
Hopefully
He
not.
I will say this: Woody gives every single one of these GM and head coaches at least 2 to 3 years. Like I said, I think it was 3 years a couple weeks ago. He gives them at least 3 years to make all the decisions. And this is your roster. Do what you got to do. But once after 3 years, I make an evaluation that we haven't made the playoffs or we haven't improved at all. The culture isn't great. Then I'm going to start meddling into this group and figuring out what's best for it. Would you love to have him have a little more patience? Probably yes, but I still think this is a desirable job considering one, it's the only one available, and two, you have a lot to play with here. It's not like you don't.
The thing is, Woody has to understand that if he continues to meddle and if he does it early enough in someone's tenure here, it's going to cause issues, not only with the person that he's meddling for, but it'll happen across the board. The GM might start getting ticked off, the head coach. I mean, we have to understand too, on a team, in a front office with coaches, they all work together.
Yeah.
The GM and the head coach work side by side when they go through scouting for the draft, etc. They work together. If they know that Woody's overstepping his bounds with decision making that they should be doing, that word travels around fast. You start having a bad you start thinking badly of your owner, and you start that takes away from culture. You don't buy into what the owner, the leader, the person at the top is doing, and you don't believe in the team, in the process. And you start changing your ways a little bit. You might not believe in what you're doing, or think that you'll be there. So I think it's very important for Woody to allow these first time not first time, but these new hires to come in here and to give them some leash so they can figure things out. But like every owner in sports, they got there for a reason. A lot of these guys and gals and people, they want to put their foot down when it's time. They didn't make all their money in business just sitting back all the time. They've been go-getters. So sometimes they can have that activation kind of kick in, especially when things aren't going well. And I think that happened with Woody specifically.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. Let's talk about some of these head coach candidates because I think that really is what's going to affect this team. While the GM does have responsibility of building this roster, the head coach is something that this team desperately needs. They need a tactician, in my opinion, Frankie. They need someone
Yes, sir.
that's going to give you an XO advantage, come up with a great game plan every single week, and just have you feel confident as a fan. Like, you know what, we got a chance today because I believe in this coach on the sideline. So the Jets have put in requests for a lot of coaches. Now, bear with me. I'm going to run through them real quick. They have already
You have
interviewed.
enough time?
I do. They have
Okay.
already interviewed Mike Vrabel. They have already interviewed Ron Rivera. However, they have put in requests for Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady, Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy, Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, ESPN analyst Rex Ryan is interviewing tomorrow, 49ers quarterback coach Brian Greasy, Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores, Vikings offensive coach Josh McCown, Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, and Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick. Have I missed anyone on that list, buddy?
I do not believe so. Great job.
I believe they're
Unbelievable.
going to eventually ask for Liam Cohen permission. They have not officially, from what I have read so far, but I have seen that they are interested in submitting a request for Liam Cohen. He can't interview this week because he is preparing for the wild card game this weekend. So you probably won't see him until next week, if anything, when they do actually put the interview request for Liam Cohen. But of that list, give me a couple of names, Frankie, that stand out to you on that list of the Jets head coach candidates that they're interviewing.
Well, listen, I'm going to go with the offense. I'm always an offensive person. That's just what I want. I want the Jets to get an offensive coach in here. Please. Can we run a modern day offense? We need to develop a quarterback that's probably going to be a rookie or maybe a retread. Can we get a system in place, please? Is that too much to ask, right? I mean, am I asking for too much? I mean, offensive coaches, they're all over the place. Why not? They're all over this thing. So let's get one, please. I like Bills OC Joe Brady. I think that's a good name. I think it's a young candidate, someone who's innovating the way that he is with Buffalo. He's in Division 2. That's another thing not enough people are talking about. He knows how Josh Allen plays. I mean, you got to get that advantage sometimes in life, right? You gotta do what you can to win. Ask Bill Belichick. Um, you you look at Bobby Slowick. I like Bobby Slowick. I do. I think their team has been a little bit hampered by injuries this year, especially on the O line. They've had some wide receiver injuries. I think things are sort of changing there a little bit offensively as other teams are starting to get tape on CJ. But I think he did enough with CJ in his first year, and he's proven that he can throw the ball down the field and put up some points. I like Slowick. A little bit of a shy interviewee, can be a little bit low key. And when you hear him talk, you're like, where am I, in like a library or something? But I think he's got enough there. The other name, I mean, listen, I'm not. I know I'm going to get some hate for this, but I've never shied away from that. I think Arthur Smith's an interesting candidate. The only reason I say that is if you look at the way Arthur Smith is as an offensive coach, he's extremely meticulous. He's been around the league for a long time. He values offensive line play, was an offensive line coach. Something about him I always liked. I know people hate him, and I'm in a very small minority there, probably like the 3% club or maybe even the 2.5% club. But I think Arthur Smith gives you enough experience as an offensive coach that there's not a coincidence Pittsburgh couldn't wait to bring him on board when he was available. So I just think like he's known for having a calm demeanor, but he has the ability to connect with players. He's earned a lot of players' trust. He emphasizes accountability. That's always been a thing. And listen, he's been part of a bunch of rebuilds, and some of his players in Atlanta when he was there. I mean, he went 7-10 3 years in a row. He probably fit right in here, the 7-10 club. But I'm just, Arthur Smith could be interesting. He's done some things in the red zone in terms of innovating certain things in the red zone. They've said I've read up on him and his red zone strategy a bunch. Not my first candidate. The interesting one, though, the most interesting on that list is Brian Greasy. I don't know if that's a head coaching hire per se. I think that could be an OC hire. But yeah, Greasy has a great reputation around the league. His broadcasting career, I always liked him. Whenever he was an analyst for Monday Night Football, I was a big fan. He's been with the Niners since 2002. Their quarterbacks coach. He was key in developing Brock Purdy, which is big for me. And I think he could be someone that could be an OC that could turn into a head coach, but we might not have an option if we don't have a good enough option because we feel like these candidates are kind of flying left and right and we don't have someone that feels like they either want to come here or make sense for us. Greasy could be almost like this high risk, high reward kind of move.
Interesting. Greasy did interest me as well. I do think that I think he might be an offensive coordinator interview that they're trying to get a name down here. And I do
100%. Yeah.
wonder if they would pair him with someone like a Mike and Aaron Glenn, if Aaron Glenn can't convince a better offensive coordinator to come over. I think the names that interest me the most, call me crazy, Josh McCown maybe is another offensive coordinator with a Brian Flores. I thought that was interesting that he's interviewing and Brian Flores at the same time. I would sign up for that tag team of Flores McCown as my head coach OC. I'm just borrow from the Minnesota family too, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been successful, and Flores we've seen. I know he's kind of got a mixed feeling from fans on how he'd be as a head coach. Didn't end well with Miami. Obviously, that was for the wrong reasons. I think the bigger name though too for me that stands out is Joe Brady that you hit on. Joe Brady. I just
Absolutely, man.
if you really want to get outside the box and be like an aggressive Los Angeles Rams type organization, could you pair a young offensive mind, Joe Brady, with one of these, young front office people from like the Rams, like they're interviewing, like in Ray Farmer or this Alec kid from Eagles? Like, could they find a young pairing and build this thing for the future with something like that? I love the idea of going young at offense and getting modern and finally using Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall like you should. Use a Malachi Corley because you should, because this is what you draft these players for. So I think Joe
The
Brady
one
stands
thing
out.
I'll say,
Yeah.
oh no, the one thing I'm going to say about McCown, I just want to see him be an OC for a year.
Yeah.
Like before we give him the role of being an OC here with a defensive minded
Oh,
coach.
you don't even
Yeah.
want him to be an OC first time here, huh?
If we have an offensive minded head coach, 100%. So if we have a Cliff Kingsbury, a Liam Cohen, a Joe Brady, even a Matt Nagy, your favorite, coach in the world, um, I would be okay with McCown going through the growing pains of year one as an OC with an offensive minded head coach. I'm less prone to want that with a Flores or an Aaron Glenn because they're not really going to help him out that much, you know?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Um, I thought that was interesting that it's like the Brian Greasy thing. They're leaving no stone unturned clearly from this list. I think the Jets are doing this the smart way. I
33 teams working hard, right?
They're working hard. I think Rick Spielman's doing probably a lot of this legwork for them and be like, interview everyone and anyone and just get them in here, see what their opinion is on this franchise, get their opinion on Rodgers, get their opinion on Garrett Wilson's situation, how they would use these players, what kind of culture would you bring in here, what kind of staff is the biggest thing would you bring in here. One other thing I wanted to end this show with, Rex. Rex Ryan was on DPH on Rothenberg this morning. He believes he's getting the job. Like he told them straight up, he goes, "I believe I'm getting this job."
I love
He's a
Rex,
confident
honestly.
man. I love him too. I worked with him for many years at ESPN. Great dude. Um, would you be shocked if Rex Ryan is the head coach of the Jets again?
That is such a good question. See, that's why you're such a good host because you ask me these questions and I'm 50-50. And would I be shocked? Yes, I would. I would be shocked. I don't see how we're going to be the only team, by the way, that's probably going to interview Rex. And I'd be shocked because of how he sort of put himself in a position to get this interview and
Well,
and potentially be the head coach. Like he sort of meddled through the media to
and he has
put himself in a
he has serious connections with the people that are doing these interviews.
yeah.
I mean, listen, Mike Tannenbaum was the coach that brought him in as a head coach. I mean, he's the GM that brought him in as a head coach. And then Woody Johnson always loves Rex. He still loves Rex to this day.
I know. Don't you think his time has passed? I mean, listen, he's getting up there in years too, 62 years old. I mean,
I'm
like
not trying to
he's
sell you as a candidate. I'm just
no,
trying to
I
tell you the
know.
realistic thing of do not be surprised tomorrow, Frankie, when this report comes out that Rex Ryan's interview went fantastic
Oh, I
and
could
he
see that.
crushed it. I'm just telling you, there will be tweets going out that Rex crushed his interview with the Jets because there's two things that I think he's going to sell them on. I can win with this roster, so you don't need much building there. And two, I think he's going to sell the culture thing, and that's a big sell job for them. And they're listening to guys like that. Like, how are you going to establish the culture here? Rex has always been a players friendly coach, and he's always been about the players, and he will die for those guys on the field, and he'll tell you that, and he'll sell you that. I mean, it's not a sell job; it's the reality. Rex will do anything for his players, and he's going to have them playing and humming. Like, don't forget that he will. It's just a matter of if his scheme still works, if he could still coach with the best of them, and if he can be a better game manager than he was in previous years. It's a lot of questions to answer. And the staff that he built. Who's the staff? A lot of his staff is not in the NFL anymore. I mean, some of them are, but not all of them. So
It
a lot
would
of
just be
questions.
so strange. Like he coached here from 09 to 14. Then he went to Buffalo 15 to 16. Hasn't done anything since other than be in the media, coaching wise. And then he pops back up in 25 as like it's just it's not impossible. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I think he's going to, as you're saying, he's going to crush that interview tomorrow. He might go in with his vest on. He might even wear like an all green suit. I wore the green for Rex today, by the way, But listen, it'd be fun if he was, but I absolutely would be shocked. Would you? Would you be shocked?
No, I wouldn't be shocked if Rex got the job.
Really?
No.
So you think what? What are you giving it? Like a 15% chance?
I think Jets fans need to understand that Rex has a better chance to get this job than a lot of the candidates that we've talked about today.
You might be right.
I just think there's too many connections between Tannenbaum and Woody, who have a lot of say in this decision, obviously. And he's going to sell them tomorrow. He's going to sell them on the vision that he has and how he's going to fix this team with the culture. He's going to preach culture. And the Jets haven't really had a great culture since Rex was here. Now, Kaz will argue winning solves all of culture issues. I think it goes deeper than that. But yeah, man, I think he's going to have a huge sell job. I just think that was an interesting thing today with Rex talking on the radio this morning. He's like, I think I got the job. So he's
I think
interviewing
he
tomorrow.
100% got the job. Like
What's
he
that?
said, he said, I'm 100% getting the job. He said,
They asked him, Rex, you really are confident you think you're getting this job? He goes, absolutely. I think 100% I'm getting this job.
oh my God.
So to be determined. We're going to be covering all this as the offseason rolls. We're just getting started. It's Black Friday, but this is an emergency gangs all here. He's Frankie. I'm Ryan. We're going to be doing this all offseason. We cannot wait to continue to discuss all things Jets the rest of this offseason because they're going to continue to give us storylines to talk about. Frankie, you are the man.
You are the man. Ben Johnson, don't break my heart and go to New England, please. Don't do it to me, please.
That's a show. Go Jets.